Hi, my name is Vijay Chandu. I'm from CSC AML branch and I'm going to explain about direct memory access. Let's get into the introduction. An important aspect governing the computer system performance is the transfer of data between memory and IO devices. The operation involves loading programs or data files from disk into memory, saving files on disk, and accessing virtual memory pages on any secondary storage medium. What is direct memory access? When large volume of data are to be moved, a more effective technique is required, which is direct memory access DMA. Blocks of data are transferred between an external device and the main memory without continuous intervention by the processor. So this DMA is a direct memory access method which get control over passing the data between memory and IO devices without the interference of OS. Implementing DMA in a computer system. A DMA controller implements direct memory access in a computer. It connects directly to the IO device at one end and to the system bus to the other end, because it needs to transfer the data between memory and IO device. It also interacts with the CPU both via the system buses and two new direct connections. It's sometimes referred to as a channel. In an alternative configuration, the DMA controller may be incorporated directly into the IO device. DMA controller. What is DMA controller? DMA controller is a part of IO interface, performs the function that would normally be carried out by the processor when access main memory. For each word transferred, it provides the memory address and all the bus signals that control data transfer. Although DMA controller can transfer data without intervention by the processor, its operation must be under the control of a program executed by the processor. To initiate the transfer of a block of data, the processor sends the starting address, the number of words in the block, and direction of the transfer. Once information is received, the DMA controller proceeds to perform the requested operation. When the entire block has been transferred, the controller informs the processor by raising an interrupt signal. So, example, reading from an IO device. Processor gives details to the DMA controller. Here, the processor gives the details about the IO device, about the device number. Here it is mentioned like main memory buffer address, about the address address in the main memory, number of bytes to be transferred and number of size, main memory buffer address, direction of transfer. What is the direction from IO to memory or memory to IO, or even vice versa to the DMA controller. How is OS involved? IO operations are allowed always performed by the OS in response to a request from an application program. Whenever an application is requested to deal with an IO, then OS will perform that operations. OS is also responsible for suspending the execution of one program and starting another. In case of an emergency or a demand, the OS will stop the process of current execution of current program and immediately start the process or execution which is in urgently required. OS puts the program that requested the transfer in the block state, initiates the DMA operation, and it will direct to DMA to do the operation, starts execution of another program. By allocating the execution part to the DMA, and it will again start its stopped program. When the transfer is complete, the DMA controller informs the processor by sending an interrupt signal to let it know that the transfer is completed. OS puts suspended program in a runnable state so that it can be selected by the scheduler to continue execution. whenever it is sent to an runnable state, then the CPU time will be allocated to that program and it starts execution. Is the DMA block diagram, data count, data register, and address register. When a read or write is requested, using the read or write control line between the processor and the DMA module, the address of the IO device involved communicated on the data lines. The starting location in the memory to read from or write to communicated on the data lines. Here, the address of the IO will be read from the data lines, and the data count will also be read through data lines, and starting location of the memory also be read and will be written using data lines itself. The number of words to be written or read or written again communicated via the data lines and stored in data counter register. Steps in DMA operation. Processor initiates DMA controller. In that, gives device number. After initiating, it gives the device number, memory buffer pointer, and the type of data transfer and the direction, etc. Called channel initialization. Once initialized, it is ready for data transfer. Here, the processor gives the DMA controller the details of IO device number and etc. and mentions what type of data it needs to be transferred and what is the count, and again what is the address and what type of data transfer and directions. Here is the DMA configuration. Single bus detached DMA, single bus integrated DMA. Here are the three types. For A, all modules share the same system bus. The DMA module acting as a surrogate processor uses programmed IO to exchange data between memory and IO module through DMA. Okay. This means that there is a path between DMA module and one or more IO modules that does not include the system bus. In C, all modules share the same system bus. The DMA module acting as a surrogate processor uses programmed IO to exchange data between memory and an IO module through DMA. Summary. Advantages of DMA. Computer system performance is improved by direct transfer of data between memory and IO device by bypassing the CPU. CPU is free to perform operations that do not use system bus. Here, when the CPU is busy with some other processor, it can allocate the DMA can get the will get the access, will get the powers to transfer the data without CPU's interference or without CPU's involvement. So this could increase the performance. Disadvantage of DMR: in case of burst mode data transfer, the CPU is rendered inactive for relatively long period of times. Here I conclude this is all about my topic. Thank you.